So stage 4 load shedding has returned with a warning from Eskom that the rotational power cuts to ease pressure off the electricity grid will be with us at least through the weekend. Ongoing unit breakdowns after years of neglected maintenance of old infrastructure is a big part of the problem. But at the same time, we as a country need to start transitioning away from our dependence on coal. This week in Glasgow at the COP26 Global Climate Summit, President Ramaphosa committing to clean energy goals. We are in line to get billions in financing to help us do this. But will that project help or hinder us as we try and get away from load shedding? I'm joined now by Bobby Peake from the organisation Groundwork. He's the director there. Bobby, thank you so much for your time. So we've got about 130 billion rand in finance available to South Africa for this just energy transition. But it's not a gift, it's a debt with lots of concessions, which I presume means easy terms. But could it actually just push us further into debt if it's not carefully used?
Well, I think Sally, thanks for having me on. And I think there's no easy terms in terms of such big debt. So even if it's concessional, we are going to be paying back a lot of interest over many, many years. And the Medupi Eskom $3.75 billion loan from the World Bank is a lesson that we need to reflect upon and revisit, and to make sure that whatever new deal comes our way, we need to understand, you know, how does this commit South Africa to new debt? Is this grant funding, and how much is it actually debt? And does this new deal provide the establishment of a just transitional fund for workers, for small, medium, micro enterprises, and you know, for the impacted coal and oil refinery communities? And how will it be used for on-the-ground projects? You know, the president talks about a task force. The question is, you know, how transparent is this task force going to be? How do we engage with this as South Africa and not just a few selected people? Because we know from Medupi, if we take the wrong process here, we're going to end up in debt and with future load shedding of note.
So I foresee another problem. You know, we have recently finished Medupi and Kusile. They've still got problems. Massive, massive coal-fired power stations, which, as you say, cost us a lot of money. How can we transition away from our dependency on coal without massive losses on Medupi and Kusile?
Well, Medupi and Kusile has locked South Africa into an energy system that does not produce what it promised to produce, and we had warned government of this. It is still not complete 10, 11 years after they had started the process. So in terms of going forward, a just transition, and you know, in terms of this loan that and this grant, I hope more grant than loan, that we're getting from various role players around the world, we need, as Melissa Fourie, who is a commissioner and works for the Center for Environmental Rights, says, this finance needs to be allocated to elements of a just transition that includes worker transition, reskilling programs, you know, aimed at stimulating the economy and improving social justice outcomes. And if we do that, together with developing a renewable energy system that is not only privatized, that is not only Eskom, but that renewable energy system needs to be on every house, rich or poor, every shack in this country. We can have Escoms on our roofs. And if we link that to the grid, I believe we will stop load shedding very soon. We cannot use this, you know, $8 billion grant to save Sasol or to just develop electric vehicles for export. And most importantly, we cannot use this grant for gas.
So what I'm hearing you saying is that if used carefully, this 131 billion rand commitment that's come South Africa's way could actually help us not only move to a greener economy, but also give us a route out of load shedding. Is it possible to say how quick that route might be if everything is done as it should?
Sally, we know that putting up renewable energy plants and renewable energy systems in the world today happens much more faster than putting up fossil fuel systems, whether it's gas or coal. Renewable energy systems can be more democratic, it can be decentralized, it can work with people, it can work with municipalities. It doesn't need these massive infrastructure builds like the present, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 megawatt Medupis and Kusiles, but it is a decentralized system. So what we need is in order to take us forward with this grant, we need a decarbonized industrial strategy that serves people rather than, creating profits for Sasol. It needs to be decentralized, as I said, on everybody's roof. We need a system that puts in place electric public taxis, a mass transport system that is clean and safe, and that is coupled with a functional rail system. And the repurposing of Eskom power stations must not be to gas. This must be new centers, regenerative community economies that are linked to decarbonized industrial economies in Mpumalanga, and then those industrialized local economies linked nationally and internationally, and we can build REEA.
Talk to me about gas, because my understanding is that gas is what would create the electricity on these power ships. And that deal, of course, is my understanding it's still being reviewed. Gas, am I correct, is seen as less dirty than coal, sometimes seen as a transitional fuel. Where do we get the gas? What gas are we talking about? And why are you concerned about gas and possibly this power ships deal?
So, firstly, we must remember that fossil fuels on the African continent, be it gas, be it oil or coal, has made people poorer, has killed people through pollution, and has taken away people's livelihoods, and has created war. Be that in the Niger Delta, be that in Angola, or be that in Mozambique, or be that, in the reality of Mama Fikile in Shangas, who was murdered in Somkele because she said no to coal. So at a human rights perspective, we cannot continue with fossil fuel. But more importantly, there's enough evidence out there by the scientists, by technical people such as the Council for Industrial Research, CSIR in South Africa, that we don't need gas. Because if you invest in gas, Sally, you're investing in an economy of fossil fuels, you then have to use it. We will never be able to become fossil-free by 2050. And the world needs to be fossil fuel-free by 2050, not net zero. Net zero is a gimmick. What we need to do is get out of fossil fuels by 2050. And if we do gas, it will result in us going on fossil fuels beyond 2050. It will put the South African economy at risk, and it will not produce for the poor in the municipalities that need, good urban infrastructure. Just today, I was saddened to read a report by Newframe about a shack. It's called the Shack Fire Special Report. Sally, when I was young, we were forced to live in an apartheid town or a village in Wentworth, and we never had electricity. And because of that, we had to boil water on a primer stove. I pulled the primer stove on me, and I was burnt with boiling water. I couldn't eat for weeks on end. That is what is happening today in shacks, in a democracy. And Abashlali Basamonjamdol is working with Groundwork, and we don't want that. We want new settlements. And we can't have the Minister of Human Settlements, Kubai, going to Dubai and talking about new housing, but not mentioning the fact that we have to develop housing and services that can stand the might of climate change when it hits townships.
And you're so right. Thank you so much, Bobby Peake, Groundwork Director, and of course pointing to the fact that power supply at municipal level has to be done right. Such an important issue that we need to take further, particularly after these local government elections.